Harmony Gulch was a place where the sun beat down on dusty streets, and the only sound were the creak of wagon wheels and the occasional bark of a dog. It was a town built on trust, where folks knew their neighbors, and a handshake was as good as gold. At the heart of it all was Marshal Sam Brody, a man as sturdy and reliable as the mountains that framed their little valley. Sam wasn't just a lawman. He was a friend, a father figure, and the embodiment of everything good about Harmony Gulch. He had a kind smile and eyes that saw right through to your soul. He was fair, firm, and always ready to lend a helping hand. His word was his bond, and everyone in town respected him for it. He'd raise his daughter, Sarah, with the same values. She was as fiery as her father was calm, but she possessed the same unwavering sense of justice. The people of Harmony Gulch felt safe with Marshal Brody watching over them, unaware that the peace was about to be shattered by a storm brewing on the horizon, a storm named Jasper Stone. Then Jasper Stone rolled into Harmony Gulch, a whirlwind of fine clothes, smooth words, and promises that shimmered like fool's gold. He arrived in a gleaming carriage pulled by a team of perfectly matched horses, a stark contrast to the dusty wagons and weary travelers the town was used to seeing. Jasper claimed to be a businessman with a vision for Harmony Gulch, a plan to transform it into a thriving hub of trade and opportunity. He spoke of new industries, improved infrastructure, and a future where everyone in town would prosper. He was charismatic, charming, and knew exactly how to play to the townspeople's hopes and dreams. He bought the old, dilapidated mill on the edge of town and announced plans to rebuild it into a state-of-the-art factory. He hosted lavish parties, showering the town with food, drinks, and entertainment. He even donated a significant sum to the local school, earning the gratitude of parents and teachers alike. It didn't take long for Jasper Stone to become the most popular man in Harmony Gulch, a shining beacon of hope in their quiet little world. He was a star, and they were all drawn to his light, unaware of the darkness he concealed. But beneath the surface of Jasper's generosity, a shadow began to creep over Harmony Gulch. Small things at first, a missing horse here, a stolen tool there. Then the crimes escalated. The bank was robbed, the general store was ransacked, and a fire mysteriously broke out at the blacksmith shop. Fear began to ripple through the town, replacing the initial excitement with suspicion and unease. People started locking their doors and casting nervous glances at strangers. The sense of community that had once defined Harmony Gulch began to crumble, replaced by a growing atmosphere of distrust. Marshal Brody, burdened by the weight of his responsibility, worked tirelessly to investigate the crimes. He followed every lead, questioned every witness, but the culprit remained elusive. What he didn't realize was that Jasper Stone was carefully orchestrating the chaos, a puppet master pulling strings from the shadows, ensuring that the evidence always pointed away from himself, and subtly began painting a picture of the marshal's own potential involvement. He was slowly tightening the noose around the man who represented everything he despised: honesty, integrity, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. Jasper's plan was intricate and cruel. He subtly altered evidence, planting Marshal Brody's personal belongings at crime scenes: a handkerchief with his initials at the bank, a boot print matching his size near the blacksmith shop. He whispered doubts into the ears of influential townspeople, hinting at Brody's financial troubles and suggesting that he might be desperate enough to resort to crime. He played on the town's existing prejudices and resentments, reminding them of past disagreements Brody had with certain individuals, subtly implying that the marshal was using the crimes to settle old scores. He even staged events to make Brody look incompetent, such as discovering crucial evidence that the marshal had supposedly overlooked. Slowly but surely, the seeds of doubt began to sprout in the minds of the townspeople. The man they had once revered as a hero was now viewed with suspicion and mistrust. The whispers grew louder, the accusations more pointed, and the atmosphere in Harmony Gulch became increasingly toxic. Jasper Stone had successfully turned the town against its protector, all while maintaining his own facade of innocence and concern. The trial was a sham. Jasper Stone orchestrated every detail, ensuring a swift and damning conviction. Witnesses, carefully coached and subtly threatened, testified against Marshal Brody. The planted evidence was presented as irrefutable proof of his guilt. The town, whipped into a frenzy by Jasper's manipulation, demanded justice. Marshal Brody, stunned and betrayed, could only watch as his life crumbled around him. He tried to defend himself, to explain the inconsistencies and point out the obvious manipulations, but his words fell on deaf ears. The jury, swayed by Jasper's influence and the overwhelming sentiment of the town, delivered a guilty verdict. The judge, a man easily swayed by public opinion, sentenced Marshal Brody to hang. The sentence was to be carried out swiftly, a public spectacle designed to send a message. Crime would not be tolerated in Harmony Gulch. As Brody was led away to his cell, a wave of despair washed over him. He knew he was innocent, but he also knew that he was running out of time. The only hope left lay with his daughter, Sarah, who refused to believe the lies that had condemned her father. The execution was scheduled. Sarah Brody was not one to back down from a fight, especially when her father's life was on the line. While the rest of the town celebrated the justice that had been served, Sarah felt a burning rage in her heart. She knew her father better than anyone, and she refused to believe he was capable of the crimes he was accused of. As the sun set on the day of the trial, casting long shadows over Harmony Gulch, Sarah made a vow. She would not rest, she would not sleep, she would not eat until she had cleared her father's name and exposed Jasper Stone for the villain he truly was. She was a young woman, but she possessed a strength and determination that belied her age. She had inherited her father's unwavering sense of justice and his keen eye for detail. And she had something else that her father didn't: the burning fire of righteous anger. The clock was ticking, the gallows were being prepared, and Sarah Brody was ready to fight for her father's life. Her investigation began that very night, under the cloak of darkness, with a single, unwavering thought: he is innocent. Sarah's first challenge was the wall of skepticism she faced from the townspeople. Most of them were convinced of her father's guilt, their minds poisoned by Jasper Stone's lies. When she approached them with questions, they either dismissed her outright or offered veiled threats, warning her to let it go and accept the court's decision. The local sheriff, a man who had always been jealous of Marshal Brody's popularity, was particularly unhelpful, obstructing her investigation at every turn. He refused to share evidence, denied her access to witnesses, and even spread rumors that she was delusional and unstable. Even some of Sarah's closest friends and neighbors seemed hesitant to help, fearing the repercussions of going against Jasper Stone, who now wielded considerable power and influence in Harmony Gulch. Sarah felt isolated and alone, but her determination only grew stronger. She knew that if she was going to save her father, she would have to do it on her own, against the tide of public opinion and the machinations of a ruthless enemy. The town that once embraced her family now seemed like a hostile landscape. Sarah started by revisiting the scene of the bank robbery, the crime that had solidified her father's guilt in the eyes of many. She pored over the official report, her father's report, searching for anything that didn't quite add up. It was tedious work, but Sarah was meticulous, just like her father had taught her. Hours passed, and the moon climbed high in the sky. Just as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, she spotted it: a small discrepancy in the description of the getaway horse. The report stated that the horse was a dark bay, but a witness had initially described it as a chestnut with a white blaze. The detail had been dismissed as a minor inconsistency, but to Sarah, it was a flicker of hope. Why would the description of the horse be changed? Was it a simple mistake, or was someone deliberately altering the evidence? The question fueled her resolve. It was a small thread, but Sarah was determined to unravel the whole tapestry of lies that Jasper Stone had woven around her father. This one overlooked detail was her starting point. Knowing she couldn't pursue this lead alone, Sarah sought help from two unlikely sources. First, there was Dusty Rivers, a former outlaw whom her father had arrested years ago, but had treated with respect and fairness. Dusty owed Marshal Brody a debt of gratitude and, despite his checkered past, possessed valuable knowledge of the town's underbelly. He knew the kind of people who might be involved in Jasper Stone's schemes. Second, Sarah approached Martha Jenkins, a bookkeeper who worked for Jasper Stone at the mill. Martha was a quiet, observant woman who had always seemed intimidated by her boss. Sarah had noticed Martha's unease during the trial, and she suspected that Martha knew more than she was letting on. Convincing them to help wasn't easy. Dusty was reluctant to get involved, fearing it would jeopardize his newfound freedom. Martha was terrified of Jasper Stone and the potential consequences of betraying him. But Sarah pleaded with them, appealing to their sense of justice and reminding them of the good man her father was. Slowly, cautiously, they agreed to join her cause, forming an unlikely alliance against a powerful enemy. Working together, Sarah, Dusty, and Martha began to piece together the puzzle. Dusty used his connections to track down the witness who had initially described the getaway horse. The witness confirmed that he had indeed seen a chestnut horse with a white blaze, but had been pressured by someone to change his statement. He couldn't say who, only that they were a powerful man in town. Meanwhile, Martha, risking her own safety, started secretly copying financial records from Jasper Stone's office. She discovered a series of suspicious transactions, large sums of money being transferred to unknown accounts. She also found coded notes that seemed to detail Jasper's plans, but she couldn't decipher them. Then, Sarah remembered something her father had told her long ago. If I ever get framed, look for the clues I left behind. They're hidden in plain sight for you to find. Marshal Brody, anticipating the possibility of being wrongly accused, had created a safeguard, trusting that his daughter would be the one to find it. The clues were hidden in his favorite books. Sarah raced to her father's small cabin, her heart pounding with anticipation. She carefully examined his collection of well-worn books, searching for any sign of a hidden message. Inside a copy of Treasure Island, she found a pressed flower with a series of numbers written on its stem. It was a code, a simple substitution cipher that her father had taught her when she was a child. The numbers corresponded to letters in another book, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Deciphering the message, Sarah found a series of cryptic instructions, leading her to different locations around Harmony Gulch, a specific tree in the forest, a loose brick in the old church, a hidden compartment in his desk at the Marshal's office. At each location, she found another clue, another piece of the puzzle. The clues were cleverly disguised, requiring Sarah to use her intelligence and her knowledge of her father's ways to understand them. It was a race against time, a desperate treasure hunt with her father's life hanging in the balance. Each clue brought her closer to the truth, but also closer to the danger that Jasper Stone represented. Spurstone was not oblivious to Sarah's activities. He had spies everywhere. It didn't take long for him to realize that she was digging into his affairs. He initially dismissed her as a naive and grieving daughter, but as she got closer to the truth, his concern grew. He intensified his efforts to discredit her, spreading rumors that she was unstable and obsessed, trying to invalidate her claims before she could present them to anyone. He used his influence to turn the town even further against her, making it difficult for her to find food, lodging, or even a friendly face. He also began to create dangerous obstacles for her and her allies. Dusty was ambushed by a group of thugs, and Martha's home was ransacked. Jasper wanted to send a clear message: back off or face the consequences. The race against time had become a desperate fight for survival. Sarah knew that Jasper would stop at nothing to protect his secrets, and she was running out of time to save her father. The final clue led them back to the mill, to Jasper Stone's private office. Sarah knew that the ledger, the definitive proof of his crimes, was hidden somewhere within those walls. But Jasper, anticipating their move, had fortified the mill with guards and traps. A tense chase ensued, Sarah, Dusty, and Martha navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the mill, dodging guards and avoiding perilous obstacles. Dusty's knowledge of the criminal underworld proved invaluable, helping them to outsmart Jasper's henchmen. Martha, despite her fear, showed unexpected courage, using her familiarity with the mill's layout to guide them through secret passages. They finally reached Jasper's office, only to find it locked and guarded. Dusty, with his lock-picking skills, managed to open the door, but they were immediately confronted by Jasper himself, holding a gun. A showdown was inevitable. The ledger, the key to Marshal Brody's freedom, was within their reach, but Jasper was determined to keep it hidden, even if it meant resorting to violence. The clock was ticking, and the gallows awaited. Before Jasper could react, Sarah threw open the windows, shouting to the townspeople gathered outside for her father's execution. "He's the one who framed my father. Jasper Stone is the criminal." Her voice echoed across the town square, silencing the crowd. Jasper, momentarily stunned, tried to regain control, yelling that Sarah was lying, that she was crazy. But Sarah, fueled by adrenaline and righteous anger, wouldn't be silenced. She recounted everything they had discovered, the altered evidence, the suspicious transactions, the witness who had been pressured to lie. Martha, emboldened by Sarah's courage, stepped forward and confirmed Sarah's accusations, revealing the details of Jasper's financial schemes and coded notes. Dusty, standing beside Sarah, warned the townspeople that Jasper was a dangerous man who had manipulated them all. The crowd, initially skeptical, began to listen, to question their blind faith in Jasper Stone. Doubts started to creep into their minds as they realized the extent of his deception. Sarah held up a copy of the ledger, its pages filled with Jasper's damning confessions. The tide was turning. Seeing that his carefully constructed facade had crumbled, Jasper panicked. He lunged for the window, intending to escape into the chaos of the crowd. But Sarah was too quick. She tackled him, wrestling the gun from his grasp. Dusty and Martha quickly joined in, subduing Jasper and securing him. The townspeople, finally realizing the truth, surged forward, their anger now directed at Jasper Stone. The sheriff, seeing the shift in public opinion, finally found his courage and placed Jasper under arrest. Sarah held up the ledger, reading aloud the details of Jasper's crimes: the bank robbery, the arson, the framing of Marshal Brody. The townspeople listened in stunned silence, their faces etched with shame and regret. They had been duped, manipulated by a master con man. With Jasper Stone apprehended and his crimes exposed, the execution was halted. The ledger was irrefutable proof of Marshal Brody's innocence. Justice, at long last, was about to be served. The truth was out, and Harmony Gulch would never be the same. Marshal Brody was immediately exonerated and released from prison. As he rode back into Harmony Gulch, he was greeted by a cheering crowd, their faces filled with remorse and gratitude. They had wronged him, doubted him, but now they welcomed him back as a hero. He embraced Sarah, his heart overflowing with pride and love. She had saved his life, cleared his name, and restored his faith in humanity. He also thanked Dusty and Martha for their courage and loyalty, promising to repay their kindness in any way he could. Jasper Stone, stripped of his wealth and influence, was brought to justice. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to a long prison term, a fitting punishment for his crimes. The mill, once a symbol of his ambition, was shut down, its dark secrets exposed for all to see. Harmony Gulch slowly began to heal, the wounds of distrust and suspicion gradually fading. Marshal Brody resumed his duties, his reputation stronger than ever. He had been tested, betrayed, and nearly destroyed, but he had emerged from the ordeal with his integrity intact. Harmony Gulch learned a valuable lesson from the ordeal. They realized the dangers of blind faith and the importance of critical thinking. They vowed to never again be swayed by empty promises and charismatic deceivers. The townspeople understood that true justice required vigilance, skepticism, and a willingness to stand up for what was right, even when it was unpopular. The bond between Marshal Brody and Sarah was stronger than ever. They had faced adversity together, and their love and trust had been tested and proven true. Sarah had not only saved her father's life, but had also shown the town the true meaning of courage and loyalty. As the sun set over Harmony Gulch, casting a warm glow on the dusty streets, Marshal Brody, stood beside his daughter, looking out at the town they had both sworn to protect. The peace had been hard-earned, but was all the more precious because of it. They knew that challenges would always arise, but they also knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. The spirit of Harmony Gulch, though shaken, was unbroken. The end.